We are here at the bottom of Fish Creek, also known as the old Apache Trail, and this is the area where the infamous Hacksaw Tom used to rob the stages as they go through.
Hacksaw Tom was I guess you'd call him well, he wasn't a train robber. He wasn't really a stagecoach robber either. He would just rob people when they were going up the Apache Trail, because contrary to popular belief, it was not a stagecoach route.
Oh.
No, that trail was built in order to get materials up to build the Roosevelt Dam. It wasn't, people like to think it was a stagecoach route, but it really wasn't. Now, it was used later on when people used to tour the area and go up to the dam, and there used to be an inn up there that people could go to, but it was not a stagecoach route.
So, Larry, this is the area where Hacksaw Tom would stop the coaches.
Yeah, when they decided to build Roosevelt Dam, of course, they had to have a road to take supplies up to, and this was originally called the Tonto Wagon Road, and it had a couple of different names from time to time, but the Southern Pacific Railroad is the one that tagged it with Apache Trail because it was so scenic, and they were taking scenic tours up in here. And this particular spot, there was a bandit that was tagged by the name of Hacksaw Tom, who held up the wagons and coaches that went by here. So he had a perfect view of them coming down the hill, and he'd come bounding out from behind a rock and level a young cannon at them, is what they said. He just relieved everybody of whatever money they had. He never fired his weapon. He never shot anybody. It got to be to the point that drivers were bringing their friends along just so they could say they've been held up.
So why would Hacksaw Tom pick this spot?
Well, you know, the road has been widened somewhat since the beginning of the trail. And some of these heavy loaded wagons were driving teams 12 and 14 head on them. And boy, when they come to a curve like this, you had to have some skill to be able to make this turn, and you were moving real slow. And this would be an ideal opportunity to come bounding out and put a stop on them.
So are you saying he came out right here?
Well, it could have been.
Right here. But I mean, it's as good as any. And
it's
you've got a cave back there too that's kind of an interesting cave. He could have been hiding that in. But it's very deep here. It's very deep. You don't realize until you get on the bridge and look down just how deep it is here. But so there was a bridge here at that time. It wasn't this bridge, but it was.
I don't know. It could have been. I don't know what.
Well, what time frame were we talking about?
We're talking 1903 is when they started the Apache Trail.
Okay, all right.
They had started with 200 Papago Indians down at Government Wells, and 200 Apache Indians up at Roosevelt, and they met in between.
Oh, well, yeah, very well could have been this one then. It's amazing. Things are a lot like they were back then here, and it's just a beautiful area and a great hiking area too.
However, Hacksaw used to rob people up there. Probably you're talking around the turn of the century, the turn of the 19th to 20th century, and no one ever discovered his identity. He disappeared just as he came, and the thing was, somebody found at one point in a cave what you see there. They found his mask, which they identified as his. Those straps that were on top of those are actually that held luggage on top of a stagecoach. Those were found, again, no proof that they came from there, but they were found in that cave. And all those other artifacts that you see in there were also found in the cave, along with those things.
So why did they name him Hacksaw Tom? Sounds like a serial killer.
Well, he wasn't named that right off. It was many years afterwards that, you know, a friend of mine, Hank Brown, and his brother were prospecting along the Salt River. They started down by Saguaro Lake and was working east, and they come across a tributary canyon that they wanted to explore. And in this canyon was a cave that was kind of well up off the bottom, and they went up in there and they found a military wagon, one of those square-bowed ones, like an ambulance wagon.
Yeah.
And it was in good condition, but they just left it there. Wasn't anything they could do about it. And 20 years later, that's 1958, and 20 years later, they were in buying something someplace, And some guy was telling a story about a sub-chief named Nana that had held up a military payroll and hid it in a cave with a wagon. Man, they got all excited, and they had to make 2 or 3 stabs at it. They run out of water. It was a dead summer, and finally they got back in there. And the wheels had been taken from the wagon, and the wagon had been partially burned for firewood.
Oh, man.
And they were disappointed, but they sat down on a rock and was eating their lunch, and Hank noticed a depression in the ground underneath where the wagon was. So he dug it up, and up came this satchel about this long, about this wide, had the 2 handles that opened up like this. And all the stuff that you see in the museum was in there, including this sawed-off shotgun. And he had made 3 cuts on the gun, cut the barrel off, and 2 cuts on the stock to make it a pistol grip, so that's why they named him Hacksaw Tom.
So nothing grisly.
Nothing grisly.
And from what I understand, he never harmed anybody when he was
Never
robbing.
fired his weapon once.
Never fired it.
And as I said, the drivers brought their friends along just to say they'd been held up.
I believe that all he did was hold them up with that sawed-off shotgun, demand their valuables, and then disappear. And never hurt a person, never hurt a soul, never caught, and they never found out who he was.
So Hacksaw was kind of a celebrity here.
Yes, he
Come
was.
on in, get in, let's go get robbed by Hacksaw Tom.
Well, and they'd report it to the sheriff, but think by the time you got out here that you could report anything and the sheriff could get back, it's 2 days, you know.
Pretty wise guy.
They set traps for him. They had some posse members in some of those wagons, but he never fell for it. They never caught him.
And there's no clue whatsoever as to who he really was.
No, none what at all.
And he vanished, just vanished.
Vanished.
Stopped.
We figure he
Retired.
He was even accredited with the first automobile holdup in 1906, and that was in the newspapers.
Wow.
And I think the heat might have got a little heavy on him because it's a little quicker to get here.
A little quicker now. Now it's more well-traveled, so to speak.
And so he
That
decided,
was it. Well, he could have gone somewhere else and been known as a different name.
Different
so,
thing.
You know, may have just moved on.
And just a quarter mile from here, after the car started traveling the road, they put up the Fish Creek Canyon Lodge. And this was a major tourist stop.
I didn't know about was the lodge.
It was a major tourist stop. And then they finally built one up at Roosevelt. But this one burnt down in 1929. And the governor of Arizona wanted the road to make all the complete circuit that it does now from Globe to Apache Junction. And in 1922, he ordered that done. And they finished the military road from Superior to Oak Flats that they abandoned. And that made a complete circuit, and then lots of vehicles started driving this.
Well, we're getting lots of vehicles today. But yeah, well, you know, like I said, Hacksaw may have not stopped. He may have just moved on down the road a bit.
Could well be.
What fascinates me is that there was an actual lodge down at the base here. And it was a very popular lodge.
Very popular.
And they would travel this road to get to it.
Right.
Wow, you must have been a great
We're talking real old cars now.
Yeah.
Some of them are still at the bottom of the canyon.
That was the parking lot. Just imagine Hacksaw Tom coming down right here and stopping a stage and robbing him. I'd like to thank Larry Hedrick again for the story of Hacksaw Tom, just another mystery of the Superstition Mountains.